It is quickly getting real. Brock Purdy to Mike Evans. Exciting update for you. It appears that Mike Evans was on hand for Camp Purdy in Nashville last week. Jordan Watkins, another 49ers wide receiver, posted this. And yes, I can see both Demarcus Robinson and Mike Evans in the photo. So 49ers veteran receivers coming out to work with Brock Purdy. I think it's time for people to stop lying about Brock Purdy and the 49ers. We had a garbage top 10 quarterback list come out the other day. Here's where I stand on it. This is the only correct place to stand on it. You are judged by your performance in the NFL. And we have objective metrics to measure performance. Guess where Brock Purdy resides when it comes to efficiency ever since he joined this league in 2022? Number one. 5 playoff wins. Get out of here with Justin Herbert ahead of Brock Purdy. Anyway, more 49ers truth as we talk about this season. Set the table. I have the article up on the San Francisco Standard. There have been some suggestions this offseason that the 49ers aren't fully going for it here in 2026. Well, actual facts show that those suggestions couldn't be more misguided. Look at cumulative average per year of contracts on each team's books. The 49ers rank number one in the entire NFL. So, by perhaps the most general spending category there is, the 49ers are spending the most in the league. Now, what's really interesting, and I delve into this on the article, is that the 49ers also have the most salary cap room in the entire National Football League, 69 million. So you wonder, how do those two things work together? How can they spend the most and also have the most salary cap room? As you can see, there is an imbalance here. On the left side, it is the 49ers APY spending. You see a lot of blue, especially on the offensive side. And you see much more mixed colors on the salary cap side. So the cap hits are smaller than the actual money that the 49ers have committed to players. And this is by design. What the 49ers have done more aggressively than any other team is they've prorated the cap damage into the future. They're taking advantage of the NFL's rising salary cap. I think their salary cap management, along with that of the Philadelphia Eagles, has been the best in the league. But what it has set up is a chance for the 49ers to spend big this year and also have that salary cap room that gives them flexibility for a potential trade acquisition before the November 10th deadline. We've talked about Max Crosby. We've talked about Jesse Bates III. We'll see what the 49ers need and where they are once this season begins. But I think that the combination of high spending plus high cap allows the 49ers to truly push all chips into the middle of the table this year based on what they need as the season begins. So with rookies reporting on Saturday and then veterans coming the week after that to the 49ers facility, I think that you could rest assured that San Francisco is very, very aggressive this season. Now, the most fascinating part of all this, and this ties right into Brock Purdy and that 49ers wide receiver core working out in Nashville. And obviously, we're going to see all of the receivers on the field with Purdy, all of them except for Brandon Ayuk, when the 49ers convene for training camp on July 25th. Look at the spending division for the 49ers entering this 2026 season. 67% of their cumulative APY spending headed to the offensive side of the ball. Only about 32% to the defense. Now, 2 years ago, this was essentially inverted. The 49ers were under 40%, 39% when it came to offensive spending. And the defense, they were spending the second most of any team in the NFL on their defense. Now, though, the defense is in the 20s and the offense is number 2 behind only Philadelphia. So there was a marked inflection point in 2025 when Brock Purdy signed his extension for $53 million annually. There was also an inflection point in 2024 after the 2024 season when the 49ers decided to modernize the defense. They cut a lot of those bloated veteran contracts and they spent their first 5 picks on defensive players in the 2025 draft. You let the rookie wage scale get to work in that scenario. So the defense has gotten younger and cheaper, and the 49ers hope faster and hungrier. It was hard to tell last year because of all the injuries, but obviously here in this 2026 season, they hope to see the fruits of all those efforts. Meanwhile, the offense, it's the oldest in the league, but I don't think that you mind re-signing Trent Williams. He's still at the very top of the game at the left tackle position. And we can go back to Mike Evans, who's been working out with Brock Purdy over the course of this offseason. Remember, Purdy promised that he was going to organize something in Nashville, and Purdy indeed came through. But Mike Evans, one of the additions for San Francisco, 33 years old, obviously upping the average age. The 49ers see a window that might be closing, but it's still there with Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, and they want to maximize that window. They want to make sure that the offense is the locomotive that pulls the train as the younger defense acclimates in the NFL. Speaking of that defense, they've got a new coordinator in Raheem Morris. And I think, this also defeats another one of the lies surrounding the 49ers this offseason. It's this overgenerality that I've heard so many times. People saying, well, the 49ers, they're just too old and they're too brittle. Well, we've already pointed out that the offense, yes, is indeed the oldest in the NFL, but it is that way for a reason. And they were a very high-performing offense even without wide receivers last year. So, of course, they've added veterans to try to solve the one weakness. There was no reason to blow that side of the football up, given the results that we saw from them without production and separation at the wideout position. But the defense is not old at all. The defense is one of the younger defenses in the entire league. And what the 49ers have done as they've modernized this unit is they've turned to a defensive coordinator in Raheem Morris, who has a track record of building amorphous defenses that can stay a step ahead of opposing offensive coordinators schematically. Defenses that can evolve because he's been in different places. And I think that's exactly what the 49ers plan to do with their young defense under their new defensive coordinator. One of the main areas of concern for the 49ers talent-wise is the safety position. They've stocked up on new defensive linemen. They obviously have Fred Warner returning at linebacker. That's the one spot on defense where they're truly spending big as a position group, is that linebacker unit because of the number one contract that's been given to Fred Warner. And I think they've got good cornerbacks. We've talked a lot about Lenore, Renardo Green, and Upton Stout at the nickelback position last year. But the safety position is the one big question mark because there was no bigger draft pick or marquee signing over the course of this offseason. However, I've been digging back through some hints that Raheem Morris might have given us over the course of spring. He was asked about that safety position. Notice that the only player that he specifically mentioned in response was Upton Stout.
I think it's less about, starting spots for coaches. It's more about roles and what kind of roles can people do to help you win. And I think people finding their roles, whether you call Stout a starter or not, he's a starter. Being that nickel role that he stepped into last year and played at a very high level, I think those things matter. Whether you talk about the safeties and how they're going to play and what their role is going to be, I think you want those guys to go out there and compete at a very high level and give you everything that they can. And they've shown a lot of good things, despite what might have been said about these guys in the past. And I'm really excited to watch those guys play.
Long story short, Upton Stout played about 70% of the 49ers defensive snaps when he was available last season. That's what happens when you're the nickelback. You're not on the field in base situations. Those come about 30% of the time. Stout finished the year as the 49ers' best defensive player, which means that I think entering 2026, there's no way that you can keep him off the field 30% of the time. That means safety is a possibility for Upton Stout. And it doesn't mean that he's completely changing positions. It means that whenever the 49ers need a nickelback in there, Stout may be the guy, but on the 30% of snaps that he saw on the sideline last year, perhaps he drops into a safety position, one that can match up man-to-man with slot receivers near the line of scrimmage. We saw Jimmy Ward do a lot of that for the 49ers, especially back in the 2019 season. Remember week 6 against the Rams? Jimmy Ward working against Cooper Kupp completely shut him down. Well, he was an adaptable, amorphous defender whom the 49ers loved having on that back end, and I think that Upton Stout might be heading in a similar direction. Notice that Morris talked a lot about roles. He emphasized roles. Well, you look at Nate Hobbs, whom the 49ers signed this offseason. Free agent cornerback, somebody who's been very good as an inside cornerback, not as good as an outside cornerback. Maybe he can take over a lot of nickelback duties if the 49ers want, in effect, two nickelbacks, if they want Upton Stout playing kind of a matchup DB role from a technical safety position. Bottom line, though, again, is that you do not want to take Stout off the field. And I think when we look at this defense and the youth and the new coordinator and the way up potentially, players like Upton Stout and a growing snap load are a big part of it. And the 49ers, who finished number 21 defensively last year, I've talked about this over and over again as we preview what this team is going to need to look like for legitimate Super Bowl contention in 2026. We talk about a defense that has to be in the top half of the league at least. Top 10, well, all of a sudden the 49ers might be Super Bowl favorites. And I think that they were flirting with top 10, maybe even top 5 last year before the injuries of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Those obviously the two biggest additions for the 49ers this year, coming off of the season enders in 2025. Last year on this very day, this is really cool. This very day last year, found the most interesting 49ers fan in the world. Walked up to me, actually. I was in London.
Phil Cornwell, British actor and comedian. He's even been in Napoleon. He's the executioner at the start of the movie. Well, he's got a 49ers tattoo and he's got a Giants tattoo. Had an amazing conversation with Phil on the streets of London. Phil became a 49ers fan in January of 1989.
Yes, and I was watching a game that I didn't understand fully. I got the basics, get the ball forward and get into the end zone. Obviously, you get 3 goes and all that. But I just was so taken by it and watching Joe Montana, to me, and I just saw he was like this sort of artist. It was something very sort of like, he's like this artist and the way he was conducting it all. And it was something very beautiful about it. And I just sort of fell in love with the idea of the Niners.
Phil appreciated the artistry of Joe Montana, obviously appreciates the artistry of Brock Purdy, who can take a significant leap forward this year with actual receivers. Remember, anytime you see one of these stupid lists, remember that Brock Purdy statistically outperformed all quarterbacks on those lists who are ahead of him, despite not actually having an X wide receiver or really any healthy plus wide receivers last year. This year, it's going to be different with Mike Evans aboard. But anyway, I brought Phil in, and I know I didn't have a beard last year, so things look a little bit different. But I know that I brought the London footage in because it just so happens that England is playing a massive, massive match against Argentina today. So I'm sure that Phil, who's got that 49ers tattoo, he's got a 49ers and a Giants tattoo. I'm sure that Phil, famous back in England, the most famous British 49ers fan, is watching today as England takes on Argentina. At some point before that game or after that game, make sure you do check out the article up on the San Francisco Standard, taking a full look at the massive 49ers spending shift that has occurred over the past 2 years. And, of course, acknowledging where the 49ers are at the top of the league in terms of that cumulative APY spending. Ever since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch came aboard. It was 10 years ago. 2017 was the first season for them. So this is season number 10 for Lynch and Shanahan. The 49ers have been the top spenders in the league. In fact, since 2019, they have ranked outside the NFL top 5 in salary cash spent just once. It was a weird 2022 season where I guess a lot of bonus money had been paid out before and obviously after the 49ers hopped right back into the top 5. But every single season since that first Super Bowl year of 2019 has been a top 5 cash spent season, including this one, including 2025, when there was a lot of hand-wringing online that the 49ers were not spending money. They actually were. They were just renovating the roster. So the money continues to pour into this 49ers team, and they hope that they can finally convert this into a Super Bowl championship under Shanahan and Lynch. Again, the misbalance of this table right here, showing the APY spending on the left and the salary cap hits on the right. You could tell that they're not really lined up. It shows you how the 49ers have deferred a lot of the costs, and they have been astronomical for this team in order to create salary cap space now, set it up for a carryover into the future. Obviously, that's needed. They're $20 million over the projected cap in 2027, and unused cap space carries over from season to season. But at the same time, you don't have to carry over all the salary cap space. You can leave some for in-season expenditures like trades to absorb big contracts. And the 49ers are definitely going to be on that market in 2026. I think that's the most intriguing part of all this, is that the 49ers have spent and spent and spent, but they've also opened up flexibility to absorb more expenditures as this 2026 marathon rolls on. And it's about to start in earnest. As I said, the 18th on Saturday, the rookies report to training camp. The 25th, the veterans must report to training camp. 26th is going to be the first practice at the facility. But as you can tell, practice is already happening for the 49ers away from the facility here in Nashville. It's featured Purdy, features Mike Evans, Demarcus Robinson, another veteran. I'm sure George Kittle will join at some point. He's still recovering from the Achilles, but the 49ers actually should be in decent health to start training camp. So it is picking up quickly. That means it was a good time for a show to settle some lies, settle some myths about the 49ers, and firmly set the table with a look at the actual numbers and actual roster construction for the 2026 season.